Hello, and welcome to the second session of Religious School Teacher Training for Zoom, in particular for Congregation Colby in Flower Mound, Texas. But as I mentioned in the last video, I think most of this information would prove useful to anybody who will be teaching classes and using Zoom as your hosting platform for that. In this session, we're going to cover all of the settings or in the Mac parlance preferences that you can set up in regard to Zoom. All of these things would occur prior to actually starting the meeting to kick off, and they're universal. Once they're set, unless you go in and change them, they'll apply to every meeting that you do. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at all of these features. Okay, I apologize for the infinity view. I'm using a screen recorder, as you can see, and until such a time as I got it minimized, it created the infinity mirror. So at least you got to see something a little strange today. So let's go ahead and get started. Once you've got Zoom started on your Windows or your Mac machine, there are a couple of ways to get to the preferences. We're going to use the most common way, which on a Mac is to go under Zoom menu. On a Windows machine, there will be a file here, a file menu, and you'll usually find it under File Settings. I would believe. I haven't used it on a Windows PC, so I'm not sure of the exact nomenclature, but it's generally File Settings. On a Mac, it's Zoom and Preferences. The other way you can get in is if you're actually signed in the upper right-hand corner of the Join the Meeting window, you'll see a profile button or icon or avatar, and if you click on that, you'll see settings under there, and you can get to the same screen we're going to using that. So let's choose Preferences. I'm going to go ahead and jump up here to General. Under the General settings, you have the ability to use dual monitors if you would like. I'm not going to cover that in this session, so let's move on. You can enter the full screen when starting or joining a meeting. I actually prefer not to do that, primarily because I like my participants window to be docked on the right-hand side of my window, and when you go to full screen, it goes away. And so I want it over there. Most of the time what I do is I will drag the window, and I'm going to use this movies window as an example over here, and size it to whatever size I want. I find that that's a much better way to manage the Zoom window for me, and gives me a lot more control, all the while keeping my participants window docked here to the right, so that I can see it and use it as needed. This is not a bad one to check. I don't use it because I generally have it stored somewhere else, but this is a really handy thing to check. It doesn't hurt anything, but basically when you start a meeting, it's going to copy the link for the meeting into your clipboard automatically. That way, if someone sends you a text message and says, hey, I can't find the Zoom link to get logged in, you can text it back to them immediately. You can have it to paste into an email with a Control-V. You can Control-V it into Facebook Messenger, however you're communicating with that student who can't find the link. Ask me to confirm when I leave. Always a great idea. You don't want to accidentally end a meeting. And that "Are you sure?" message saves a lot of accidental button clicks. Show me my meeting duration. I prefer that in the title bar for your Zoom meeting window. It'll show how long it's been going on. I think that's important for two things. Number one, so you know how much time's left in your scheduled meeting. But number two, if you are going beyond an hour, let you know you've reached that point to try to take a break between hours. I really recommend if you have any sessions longer than an hour that you do so. Taking those breaks will really help reduce Zoom fatigue, which is easy to suffer on long online sessions. Obviously, this one doesn't apply except to Mac, so we'll skip these. And the rest of these, the stop my video and audio when the screensaver comes on, in our situations, you're probably not going to run into it because you're teaching a class. However, if you want to check it, so say you might have them working on independent work, and there might be a time where you don't talk to them for 10 minutes where your screensaver might come on, and you don't want it to transmit video in case your animals come in the room while that's going on, you can check. But generally speaking, it's not something that I would really recommend. The rest of them are not important, so I'm going to skip over them. So now let's talk about our video settings over here. This is where you'll pick which camera you're using. For instance, for the purpose of recording these training sessions, I actually have two cameras hooked up. For the Zoom, I'm using my internal FaceTime camera that's built into my Mac. And then I'm not going to choose this one, but if I did, it would choose the camera that I'm currently using to record this session for training. I use 16:9. I like that ratio. And most things are use 16:9 ratios now anyway, the standard widescreen ratio. But if you would like to use the ratio of your camera, regardless of what it is, it's the original ratio of that camera. Choose this. In the case of my camera, because it is a widescreen camera, it doesn't, as you can see, it doesn't change the perspective. Enable HD as long as you have enough bandwidth in your home. Significant bandwidth, and when I say that, I mean something probably at least 100 to 150 megabits or greater. I would enable HD. You're going to obviously get a better picture that way. However, if you don't have that bandwidth, I would recommend disabling it because it may cause lag issues, sound issues, particularly if you're trying to broadcast video. Mirror my video. I leave this unchecked. I like when I look, and I rose up so that y'all can see my shirt. Right now, when I'm looking, and you'll see this in the video when you look in the mirror, the Israeli Defense Force reads correctly because I don't have mirror my video checked. However, that's not really how cameras work. In reality, when I'm looking at the camera is looking at me back to me as if I'm a mirror. Everybody receiving it still sees it the same. I always tell people to think of it as a one-way mirror. Typically, when you're looking at the camera, it's reflecting back at you as if you're looking at a mirror, and the other person is on the other side of the one-way mirror looking back to you as if they're looking through glass. So don't ever worry about it being backwards to the viewer. To the viewer, it's going to be correct. However, if you want to see the standard view, click mirror my video, and you can see now the Israeli Defense Force is backwards. The touch up my appearance, it just softens the focus a little bit, but if you want to use it, you feel free. I like to see my participants' name, particularly with students, on their windows all the time, and so I turn that on. If you uncheck this, I believe it only comes up when they're speaking. Turn off my video when joining meeting. I like everybody to have video on, so I leave my video on at all times, so I don't need to turn that off. Now, I do show the video preview. I do that because I do, as you saw earlier, use multiple cameras. If you have a situation where you are using that, every once in a while, one of your cameras will be having an issue. They sometimes conflict, and that way you can see in the preview to make sure that your video is transmitting correctly. If not, then you'll want to come to these video settings and see if you can figure out what's going on. If you have a situation where you have people just listening in, but they're not going to transmit video or participate, you can hide their windows so that they don't show up in the list at all. And it's contingent on whether they're transmitting video. If they turned on their video camera, they would then be displayed. And then spotlight my video when speaking. I check that, and that way it always brings my window up. If I'm in speaker view, it will make me the primary, and always make sure that my video takes the primary spot because I'm the host. Just like if you spotlight someone else's video while they're talking, it will make them become the primary in speaker view. So let's move on to audio settings. This is where you're going to pick, just like we did earlier, this is where you can pick which speaker you want to use. Here I use my internal speakers. That's most common. That's going to be the default, and I would leave that there. Here is where I do use an external microphone, and so you can see I have that checked there. But I could change to my internal microphone or the microphone on my webcam. But I'm going to use this external microphone. When you're setting this, you want to get it so that it's up in this area, maybe a little bit higher by dragging your volume bar. What you don't want is to wind up in a situation if you're not getting any audio coming up. It's going to be, as you can see there, it's way too quiet, and you don't get good audio response. So when you set your audio, try to get it up here, but also try not to overdrive it. In this case, I have to speak really loud to overdrive it, but you don't want it way up here. I'm going to cheat by reaching on the back of my microphone, and it has a gain control. And so if I turn that way up, I may be able to get it to peak. But even here, you can see it automatically adjusts the volume pretty good. If you're afraid about how that's going to be set, you can choose this, and it'll do its best to adjust accordingly and enforce those rules. If you want to have your cell phone or some other device ring as well when using Zoom, check this. I don't suggest that you use that. I always use the computer to join audio. But if you have people that are dialing in, you may want to using a phone, you may want to uncheck this, or if you're in a situation where you're only going to be able to dial in phone because of poor bandwidth or the inability to get a signal other than on cell, you would want to uncheck that. I leave this mute. I suggest microphones are muted all the time unless you absolutely need them. And in my case, I have a hardware mute on my phone, my external microphone. So once I get into the meeting, I unmute, and then I'd use the hardware mute button on and off from that point forward. The press and hold space to temporarily unmute yourself is a great feature. That way you can leave yourself muted. You press and hold your space button while you're almost like if you were using a CB, for those of us old enough to remember that, or a walkie-talkie. I'm sure everyone remembers that. As long as the button's depressed, you're transmitting. As soon as you let go of the space bar, it remutes you and you'll no longer be transmitting audio. I talked about why I don't like full screen earlier, so I'll skip over why I don't have my inner full screen checked. If you like that, there's nothing wrong with full screen. It's really just a preference. It's the same reason I don't maximize the zoom window. I do, however, suggest that you scale to fit your content. So if you are sharing a window, Zoom will take care of scaling it for everybody so that it displays well, and that's pretty important. That's the same reason I don't suggest the side-by-side mode, because in that case it's going to display your videos, your participants, your gallery view on one side, and on the other side of the screen it's going to display the shared screen. Obviously that's going to cause your shared screen to have to shrink, and because of the potential scaling issues, it can sometimes be hard to view. And then silence system notifications, I recommend that you do check this. And that way, when you are sharing your screen, if you have, say, a mail notification come up or something of that nature, that audio won't transmit out to everybody. Virtual backgrounds are something that people really find fun. I have no problem with them. I use them sometimes I don't. But a couple things of note. If you can get a solid background, if you have a sheet or any solid color that you can hang behind you, you'll get better results with your virtual backgrounds. It's not necessary, but it does help. And of course, if you have a green screen, it even offers here, I have a green screen, and it will do a much better job for you. That being said, I'm just going to choose one here. There we go. Virtual background comes up no problem. I got a solid enough screen. My colors on my shirt vary enough that it works pretty well for me. If you want to add another one, you can just click this plus and add an image. I'm going to randomly select an image out of my downloads folder, so I'm not sure what I'll get, but let's see what I get. I get the green logo, but you can see I had my video checked, so it's backwards. I'll unmirror it, and so now I've got the Green Family Camp logo in the background. And then if you want to go back to no background, just simply choose none, and it will get rid of your background for you. Finally, we got a couple more. Let's talk about recording. Here you can choose what directory you want to save recordings in if you do choose to make recordings. Or you can check this box and it will prompt you when the meeting is over of where you want to save that recording. Unless you're doing advanced editing, none of these other things are really going to apply. So I'm going to go ahead and skip over that. The one that you probably do want to choose is to record video when you're screen sharing. Unless you have a reason that you don't want the screen share to be included in the video. I can't think of any reasons unless it had some personal information or something that you wouldn't want to get out. Otherwise, if you are recording, I would always leave that checked. And finally, in accessibility, one of the ones I like to leave is use here is always show meeting controls. They will automatically, much like over here with my Mac toolbar, they will automatically hide in your full screen modes, and then you have to either go to the top of the body depending on what screen you're in to cause those controls to be shown. I prefer that they're just there so I don't ever have to go searching for them, so I leave that checked, and that way I can always see my meeting controls when I'm working. If there are any specific scenarios you would like me to run through, you can include those in the comments as well. And specifically for the CKA teachers, after you viewed these videos, please make notes of any questions you have, and in our Q&A session, I'll be sure to go over that. Hope that everyone finds this information useful, and that you can make your Zoom meetings and training sessions a little bit better. And in our third and final session, I will cover the actual controls of Zoom while you're hosting the meeting. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much.